How dare you do such a thing?
My usually quiet 5-year-old daughter shouted this with wide eyes. And it happened in the hospital room of my unconscious mother-in-law. My normally calm daughter looked like a completely different person, with a resolute expression that took my breath away. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Then, there was someone who started trembling at the next words my daughter said. At that moment, a terrifying suspicion arose within me. However, the truth was far beyond anything I could have imagined. Please listen to my tumultuous experience. I am Michelle. At 26, I married my husband David, who was my boss at work, and moved into his family home. Since I was originally in charge of the e-commerce department, I was allowed to switch to working from home after getting married. Although I was worried about living with my in-laws, my mother-in-law was kind, and we got along well. However, my father-in-law was a quiet and unfriendly person. When I talked to him, he often ignored me, only responding with a yes or a no. I spent my days anxious, wondering if he really disliked me. When I consulted my mother-in-law, she would only say,
"He doesn't dislike you. He's just not good with words. I'm sorry."
Since my parents lived far away, I relied on my husband and in-laws, but I tried to avoid my difficult father-in-law as much as possible. After that, my daughter Emma was born. She had beautiful dark eyes. However, there were some concerning behaviors. By the time she was 2, she could speak and had the ability to read people's minds. For example,
Mom, Grandma seems to have a headache.
"What?" Worried, I asked my mother-in-law if she was feeling unwell.
"How did you know?" "I've had a migraine since this morning. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to worry anyone."
"Oh, I just thought you looked a bit pale." I didn't want to surprise my mother-in-law, so I didn't mention that Emma had guessed it. But I was amazed by Emma's mysterious power. By the time she was 3, she started saying things that seemed to see right through my heart.
Mom, I hope you can get along with Grandpa.
"What? Why do you think that?" Even though I treated my father-in-law normally on the surface, how did Emma know what was in my heart? However, at that moment, Emma started playing with her toys and didn't answer my question. When she was 4, something decisive happened that confirmed her powers. A few days earlier, an elderly neighbor who lived alone had passed away. Emma was talking to herself while looking out the window.
I understand. It's in the garden.
She said this, filled a cup with water, and started to go outside. Worried, I followed her and discovered a small flower seedling planted in a pot in the corner of the neighbor's garden.
The deceased lady next door asked me to do this.
Emma said this as she watered the seedling. Maybe Emma can communicate with her mind. I believed this, but my husband didn't. In fact, he found it creepy.
"Your poor parenting is making her a weird kid with delusions. You need to raise her better."
Are you saying everything Emma says is a lie?
Of course. If she says something like that in front of me, I'll scold her.
I was shocked by my husband's unusually harsh words. At that time, my father-in-law was nearby and overheard our conversation, but he turned his face away and pretended not to hear, not even defending me. I felt quite frustrated. I thought about consulting my mother-in-law, but it would mean speaking ill of her son and husband, so I kept quiet. One night, I heard loud voices arguing from my in-laws' room.
Why would you say such a thing?
Enough already.
I couldn't make out the details, but it seemed like my husband and in-laws were arguing. I was worried about the three of them but couldn't intervene. When my husband returned to our bedroom with a flushed face, he explained that he had argued with his father because he was being harsh on his mother, and my husband had defended her. This was something my father-in-law was capable of. I believed my husband's story and sympathized with him for standing up for his mother. A few days after that argument, something terrible happened. That day, I had a meeting at the head office. Suddenly, I received a call from my husband.
Michelle, something terrible has happened.
Why are you so panicked?
Mom collapsed while scratching her throat and is now unconscious.
What? When I heard that my mother-in-law had been rushed to the hospital, I hurried there, only to find her lying unconscious in bed. My father-in-law and husband, both pale-faced, were by her side. What happened? I asked my husband.
It was an accident. Mom.
He said, but he was too shocked to explain clearly. The doctor said that she might have eaten something harmful and they were running tests, but nothing was clear yet. Hearing that it might be food-related, I remembered something and consulted the doctor. The doctor said they would look into it, but warned that if she didn't regain consciousness, her life couldn't be guaranteed, and we should prepare for the worst. I was stunned. Despite my mother-in-law always being kind and supportive, there was nothing I could do for her in this critical moment. The next day, I hadn't told Emma about her grandmother's hospitalization, thinking it would be too shocking for her. However, Emma suddenly said,
Grandma is calling me.
So, my husband and I decided to take her to visit. When we entered the hospital room, Emma ran to her grandmother's bed and held her hand. Then Emma started trembling, turned around with wide eyes, furrowed her brows, and with a fierce expression, she said, Emma? What's wrong?
Stay away. How dare you make me eat this? I'll be killed by this.
My usually quiet daughter spoke with a resolute attitude and a loud voice, as if she were a completely different person. It was as if someone had possessed her. I gasped and hugged her. Emma, what are you saying? But behind me, someone was trembling, eyes wide open and face red. It was my father-in-law. Seeing him, a terrifying suspicion arose within me. At first, I didn't understand, but if what Emma said were my mother-in-law's words, it made sense. Maybe my father-in-law tried to end my mother-in-law's life. If that's the case, I need to separate him from her. I tried to seek help from my husband, but when I looked at him, he was also pale and trembling. Moreover, he pointed at Emma and shouted,
Who is she?
He screamed, horrified, and left the room. I was confused. Then, Emma continued speaking.
Mitch, you know.
I was shocked by what she said. The only person who calls me by the nickname Mitchie is my mother-in-law. And the content of what she said was unbelievable. But I learned the truth and vowed to take revenge on the person who had wronged my kind mother-in-law.
Michelle, what is going on?
My father-in-law demanded, closing in on me. Just then, the police, who had been notified by the hospital, arrived and took my father-in-law away for questioning. Please wait. I'll get to the bottom of this. I decided to return home to uncover the truth. However, I didn't want to put Emma in danger, so I left her with a close mom friend. When I got home, I found my husband packing. "Where are you going?" I asked. He didn't answer and continued packing frantically. "You don't need to run away, do you? Your dad has been taken by the police. And your mom's life is in danger."
What? Really?
David was momentarily surprised, but then I noticed a slight smirk on his face. He turned to me with a serious expression.
So, it was Dad who tried to take Mom's life. Actually, it was Dad who prepared the meal for Mom when she was bedridden with a headache. I'm sure he put poison in it.
I understood why my father-in-law had started trembling. He must have realized that the food he prepared was the cause and was terrified. I see. But maybe it wasn't poison, perhaps it was something in the food that triggered her allergy? David's face twitched for a moment. "I'll have the hospital check it out."
Don't do anything unnecessary.
He muttered. According to Emma, my mother-in-law had eaten the food prepared by my father-in-law and had an allergic reaction, making it hard for her to breathe. My mother-in-law had a rare allergy to a specific protein in crabs. Since crab wasn't a common part of our daily meals, it usually wasn't an issue, but if she accidentally ate it, she would experience severe symptoms like nausea and difficulty breathing. Only my father-in-law, David, and I knew about this. I informed the doctor about this to help with the treatment, but I kept it a secret from my husband.
It must have been Dad. He probably did it for Mom's inheritance.
David exclaimed. My mother-in-law was the only daughter of a wealthy family, and my father-in-law had no rights to the inheritance. I spoke to my husband with a big smile. I see. But if your dad tried to end your mom's life, he would lose the right to inherit. Oh. So all of your mom's assets would go to you? Lucky you.
That's right. I'll be rich. This will clear all my debts. I'll make sure you and Emma live a luxurious life.
Great. I'm so happy. I've always wanted to live a life of luxury. But do you think your dad will admit to what he did? When I murmured this with concern, David's eyes narrowed sharply, and the corners of his lips curled into a sinister smile. It was as if he was enjoying the next move.
That's why you need to testify, Michelle. Say that Dad put crab in the food.
I see. So I just need to lie.
Exactly. You're quick to understand. That way, Dad will lose his right to the inheritance, and he'll end up behind bars.
I pretended to go along with my husband's plan. He smiled, satisfied, thinking he had me on his side. But I was getting closer to the truth. But your mother might survive with the hospital's treatment. You thought you'd become rich, but if she lives, it won't happen.
Don't worry. I'll secretly put this in her mouth at the hospital.
David showed me a bottle of powder. Is that crab powder?
Exactly. I put this in the food too. Let's get rich together.
I knew from Emma's story that my husband had tried to harm my mother-in-law, but I had no proof. Hearing his evil plan clearly made me feel ashamed. Why would you go that far? You would eventually inherit her estate anyway.
Because she wouldn't listen to me. I asked her to help pay off my debts, but she told me to solve it myself. Parents are supposed to help their children.
believing I was on his side, my husband started talking about what he had done. According to him, the argument between the three of them was about my husband demanding the inheritance from my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law defending her. David had embezzled company funds and fallen victim to an investment scam. Desperate to fix the situation, he planned to use his mother's assets. However, my mother-in-law refused, thinking it wouldn't help him in the long run, leading to the argument. I see. Now I understand everything. I have your confession, so I'm going to report you to the police.
What? What are you talking about, Michelle? This is our chance to get rich.
I told David that I had recorded our conversation. In fact, I had only been playing along to get his confession. I coldly told him, I don't need money. I can't betray my kind mother-in-law. And honestly, I've lost all respect for you.
You tricked me. In that case, I'll make sure you can't talk either.
David said, furrowing his brows deeply, narrowing his eyes, and giving me a cold smile as he tried to attack me. I shouted at him. Stay away. This conversation is connected to a friend.
What? No way. I need to get out of here.
David hurriedly grabbed the packed bags and tried to flee. Actually, when I left Emma with my mom friend, I had explained the situation and asked for her help. I had kept my phone connected during the conversation with David. Then, I heard the sound of police sirens, alerted by my friend.
No way.
David let out a pathetic cry as he tried to escape through the back door, but he tripped and fell face first onto the floor. He hit his face hard, causing his nose to turn red and bleed. He clung to me, looking pitiful with snot, tears, and drool all over his face.
Michelle, please, help me. Tell the police that the culprit is Dad.
David's appearance was miserable. I have no intention of helping you. Reflect on your actions behind bars.
No.
David was taken away, crying loudly. Serves you right, I said, watching him with contempt. After that, David was found guilty. He was sentenced to many years in prison for embezzling company funds and attempting to end my mother-in-law's life. He also lost his right to inherit my mother-in-law's estate as a disqualified heir. With compensation to the company and debts to pay, a difficult life awaited David even after his release. Of course, I divorced him and demanded $20,000 in alimony and $150,000 in child support. I am now living with my in-laws and Emma, the four of us together. Although my mother-in-law has some physical limitations, she is recovering. Seeing my father-in-law diligently take care of her, I realized that he is truly a kind person, just not good with words. As my daughter grows, her mysterious powers seem to be fading. We are living peaceful and happy days. My in-laws encourage me to remarry since I am still young, but I have no such intention at the moment. I am happy just seeing my daughter's smile.
How did you like this story? Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.